Alrighty, guys, what is up? Welcome back to another episode of Weightroom Overtime. I'm your host, as always, Coach Jovan. If I'm your friend, what up? If you're new to the channel, what's up? Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. There is an interesting topic today as far as you know this channel goes. Obviously, it's called Weightroom Overtime, but we talk about different methods of training, different studies, different ways where an athlete can improve, whether that's in the gym or whether that's, diet, recovery and stuff like that. So if that's in your nature, if that's what you guys want to learn about, you're in the right place. So thank you guys for tuning in again. So today's topic is eating disorders and how that affects athletes and performance specifically. But before we get started, if you guys notice, my eye is getting better. So if you guys tuned in, sorry, if you guys tuned in to the last episode, sorry, there my headphones are messing up a little bit. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Um, anyways, sorry. If you guys notice, my eye is getting a little bit better from the last video. Obviously, I got an elbow in jiu-jitsu and my eye was all red, and one of them is a little, you know, I guess you could say it looks like I'm a little messed up, but I'm not. I promise. But also I forgot to charge my headphones. That's why you see wires everywhere. But without further ado, I don't want to hold you up. Obviously, that's my concern. But welcome. I'm so happy to have you guys, jump in. But let's get started. So eating disorders. What is it, right? Specifically, we're talking about athletes here. Obviously, this happens outside of athletics as well, and it's very common. And if not taken care of, obviously, it can lead to bad, um, consequences, whether that's a health concern, whether that's athletics. But we'll talk about athletics specifically today. So, eating disorders, there is a bunch of different things that qualify as eating disorders. There's binge eating, there's anorexic, bulimia. So, I'm not going to go too in depth into every single one, but just a broad overview of all of them in regards to how it can affect and why it happens based off studies and what we're seeing out there from registered dietitians. But so when we talk about diet, right? It's a whole controversial topic when it comes to athletes because, for example, if you are in high school, right, you're living with your parents, you're eating, what they're feeding you. I don't think most athletes right now in high school are buying their own groceries and cooking and stuff like that. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, or they might not afford nutritionists, right? We're not rich. A lot of us aren't. So, and so when athletes, get a college scholarship and they end up going to, a smaller school, right? Let's talk about a JUCO school or community college. Um, Sometimes when they move away from home, right, it's a new setting, new people, new roommates. Everybody's body is different. Maybe they were used to their mom cooking their meals, stuff like that. So now they're in a struggle if they didn't learn how to cook before, trying to figure out, okay, what is the best way to, maintain my weight? How do I look, like I play a sport essentially? So that's kind of where the controversial topic happens, where maybe their sport is based off aesthetics. So, for example, things like wrestling, things like gymnastics, swimming, kind of where you can see the whole body. Sometimes, they don't have shirts on, or maybe they're, skin tight, and they don't want to be perceived as somebody that's overweight, right? So, think about it from a psychological standpoint. These athletes are not only, I guess, challenged in the sport itself, but also challenged into looking a certain way sometimes. And now that we live in the world of social media and stuff like that, yes, studies have shown that primarily females, young females, are usually the ones that are dealing with eating disorders. They're not eating enough food, where it's affecting them in the long term. And sometimes they say it's because they want to be perceived at a certain image or look a certain way, especially if they're in a sport, right? And they admire a, top athlete, professional athletes, and they look, shredded and stuff like that. And sometimes they're trying to match that and follow their diets and stuff like that, when sometimes that's not ideal because they're playing a sport again, right? So their whole goal, it comes back to what their goals are. If their goal is to become a better athlete, to become, win the NCAA's, go to the championships, All American, whatever it may be, they have to understand that whatever they put in their body versus their training program is also what goes hand in hand with, building champions and stuff like that. So, um, as you can see, right, there's when you're in that young adulthood, right, when you're a teenager getting ready to go to college, you're in that state of mind where kind of you get influenced by not only people that you love to follow, whether that's on social media or athletics or stuff like that. And if they have a great body or have a certain image, you're gonna try to mirror that image, right, or follow whatever they do to be able to look like that, right? So you can kind of see where young athletes are starting to, you know, not eat enough food to look a certain way. Maybe they want to have a six pack, but their sport might be alignment, right? Or might be somebody that they need size, for example, in football. Not saying that's a common sport that you see it in, but you could see it, right? So things like wrestling, where they have to meet a certain way and stuff like that. That's where it kind of becomes more relevant within that sport. But not saying it doesn't happen in other ones. So the thing that I wanted to mention when it comes to eating disorders overall, they're likely to be detrimental to sports performance, although the consequences depend on the severity and duration of the disorder, right? So if somebody started brand new, obviously it's not going to affect them that much compared to somebody that's been doing it for a year or 8 months. Um, and a couple of stories that I learned through grad school is there's a there is a study done on two athletes that went to the same school, played the same sport, just two different. One was long distance running, one was short distance, and they came in as a freshman, right? New location, new training program, new college, and they were elected into a study where they actually added a sports nutritionist, and they actually found out that these two athletes were had eating disorders without them kind of knowing. They thought they were doing whatever they could, but they started to experience, fatigue. They started to experience some injuries, and some of them had to sit out a year during their college career. And with the help of the dietitian, adding foods back into the diet that hence bad for them and making them gain weight, they actually fixed the amount of calories that they needed for that sport and training, and then were able to um, actually one of them ended up winning one of the championships and being in the district, which is nice. It's nice to hear because things like that happen all across the country without them knowing, and some athletes don't really realize it. And what I mean by that is, for example, you can have an athlete that can fast, right, fast, and then he's gonna binge eat because he wanted to save some weight or whatever it may be for their game. When we talked about previously in this channel, or one of the previous episodes, is like, hey, you can't fast before a game or fast before training, because you need to be able to have your body prepared for the longer duration of the sport. So what that means is, if you don't have enough glycogen, enough energy in your muscle, sorting your muscle cells, then you're gonna fatigue really fast, which leads to sometimes injuries and stuff like that. So that's kind of why that's important, and hopefully you guys kind of understand what I'm saying here. But athletes that experience eating disorders may have low glycogen stores. Obviously, what I just said. They could be dehydrated as well. Exhibit electrolyte disturbances, right? How much sweat they're actually releasing. Have impaired high intensity performance. Have impaired endurance exercise performance as well. So that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I don't know if you guys, any of you guys played in college. It is tough when you initially get to a new place and you're kind of on your own, and to be honest, a lot of athletes aren't wealthy, especially if they don't go to a big, Pac-12 school or a Big Ten or whatever it may be. They don't go to a five-star school where they don't have a nutritionist. They don't have a meal plan included in their scholarship, right? So somebody that, for example, me, that went to community college first, they're not paying for your meals, right? So when you get to that certain time of life and realize, okay, eating healthy foods is going to cost me a lot of money, what am I going to do here, right? The instant like thing you think about is like, well, I'm going to go buy dollar menu McDonald's. I'm going to go buy dollar menu at Taco Bell. Obviously we don't, at that point you're not really thinking about, well, how is it going to affect my performance? And maybe you are, maybe you aren't. This was back in the day, right? This isn't anything, obviously now it's a little bit different. I feel like some athletes are getting more educated into nutrition and stuff like that. But what I'm trying to say is, when you're in that time of life and you move away from your parents and you're with roommates, and you get influenced, whether that's alcohol, whether that's your roommates love to go out to eat or whatever it may be. You're at some point when you don't have that money, you're not thinking about like, I shouldn't be eating this because it's gonna affect my game tomorrow, which you should, right? But when you're starving, when you don't have anything, you don't have any money, and you need to eat, obviously you're gonna go for the cheapest things, and the cheapest things are not healthy, right? So think about that kind of stuff. Obviously, and this is for the parents out there. If you're hearing this and you're watching this, I would encourage you guys to teach your kids how to cook. That's my recommendation for you guys. Teach them how to cook basic rice. Teach them how to cook, chicken, a steak. Teach them how to cook a fish, right? So basic stuff where you don't need that much things, but enough for them to be able to eat a healthier food and make it in bulk. It's kind of what I'm getting at, right? So, I would encourage a lot of your kids or parents today to teach their kids how to cook. It's not hard. And then when they leave, you feel more comfortable. It's like, well, my kid's hopefully not going to starve, right? Or go eat unhealthy foods. Obviously, this is a different conversation for 4 year athletes, people that go to 4 year schools, those big, Washington State, University of Washington, Oregon, Cal. Those people have nutritionists and they have training programs sometimes included in their scholarship where they can go into the facility, go get food. They get fed protein. They get, fed, healthy foods and sometimes even like supplements where now those people are taken care of a little bit more compared to somebody that's in JUCO that never got to experience that level of, support. So that's why it's important to talk about this because there's a lot of athletes out there, specifically today, sorry, that don't have access to that support, whether that's from a registered dietitian, whether that's from a strength and conditioning coach that's certified and has education on it, not just a certified personal training license because that's a little bit different. But I think for the most part, athletes should have a basic understanding or education of nutrition, in my opinion, because it's only going to benefit them from you know, a personal performance standpoint, but also athletics. So if your athlete is looking to play at the next level, you have to think about these things. You can't think about like, oh, the hard work. He's gonna go kill it in the gym for another 3 hours when his body's not being, you know, energized the correct way. So I think it's important to understand that things like nutrition, periodization of nutrition. So what I mean by that is if your training program is the same all year round, if you go to the gym and do the exact same workouts every day and every out, maybe you add a couple weight, that you're not doing yourself any justice. You're wasting your time in the weight room. Now, what you should do is, and you can always also ask me or look at my previous videos about periodization, is you have to, strategically plan out your training program for a year, hopefully, or 8 to 10 months, whatever the goal may be, and then figure out how you're going to increase your performance, whether that's hypertrophy, whether that's strength, whether that's power. But think when you do that, when you let's say you train for strength for 4 weeks and then hypertrophy another 4 weeks, your diet has to change along with those different changes in your training program. So that's my other goal here today is to educate you guys of like, hey, your diet has to change along with your training program. You can't just, oh, I'm gonna eat this the same amount and track it on my fitness pal when sometimes you may be burning more calories, sometimes you're burning less and your diet stays the same. Obviously you're not going to get the best results that you want, specifically if you're trying to lose weight, right? You have to understand how much calories in versus calories out. So something like a smartwatch, something like a heart rate monitor, those polar ones, like I use one for when I go, on runs or, I'm doing some training. So I can better understand at the end of the day, did I burn enough calories? And if I didn't, what am I going to eat or what am I not going to eat that's going to, overcome, you know, some calorie intakes there for the end of the day, right? So that's how I kind of figure out how I do it, but that's the best way to kind of monitor your eating every day. And then the other thing I do want to mention before I forget is when you guys are looking to um, diet or change your diet and stuff like that, don't just go on YouTube or don't go on Instagram and try to follow your social media friends and stuff like that. There's a lot of bad information out there and it doesn't get me mad, but it just gets me kind of disappointed into how much people actually believe what other people are saying in regards to, you should do this exercise to improve your bicep or you should do, these band workouts to improve your booty workout, whatever it may be. Listen, guys, there's a reason why it's called exercise science. It is a science. If you don't know the science, you shouldn't be recommending anybody anything. Um, and I even say this to people that have personal training certificates or licenses, because just because you have a certain personal trainer's license doesn't mean that you know everything. You know, so understand that there is a science behind exercise and there's ways to do things, um, and you have to start somewhere. You don't just start where somebody already has. Like, oh, I did this for 6 months and I got this. Doesn't mean you're gonna start there. Does that make sense? So just wanted to give you guys that information real quick. Obviously, this is a broad overview. I don't want to get too into details because I don't want to bore you guys to death because this is all about exercise science. Obviously, I'm a graduate student. I love this kind of stuff. So, but that is it for today, guys. I know these are starting to be a little bit shorter because I am in grad school, like I said. So my time is very valuable. But thank you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you guys feel like you, at some point, if you're an athlete specifically or a prior athlete, did you guys ever experience something like, binge eating, under eating, overeating? And do you think that affected your college career or affected your high school career, if at that matter? Because it could happen in high school as well, specifically those young athletes. Let me know in the comments if you guys feel like you guys, went through a phase like this, or know somebody that did and it affected them and you can see it. And then also, lastly, make sure you guys follow me on Instagram, Facebook. Join my Facebook group. I'm going to have some good stuff coming out. And then if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Until then, peace out, guys. I love y'all and take care. Peace.